what were some of the places where, as you started to grow, you got stuck, you stayed at maybe longer than you should have, some of the big lessons that you learned, which are like only from, getting punched in the mouth real good a couple times, like, so on that journey, because right now you're at multiple seven figures with your current run rate and everything. So like, what were some of your sticking points? What were some of the more difficult places that you hit as you were scaling?
One of the biggest sticking points I would say we had was on the sales side, because early on, like I was doing all the sales calls, right? So me being done at 3:00 wasn't happening. I was kind of like doing calls early in the morning. Sometimes I didn't even get to go to the gym because I need to get as many calls in as possible to get my numbers, right? So I'm doing calls all day. And then we was capped at that particular area. So I think we probably got to about 30, 40 grand a month, something like that. Some months, of course, worse, but I'm doing all the calls and I'm taking all the calls. I'm talking to like, 7 or 8 people a day. Of course, you're dealing with the no-shows and so forth. And that really capped us. Now I said, you know what? I need to hire some salespeople to get me off the phone or at least duplicate. So of course I did the typical way, sending out an email, posting on Facebook, hired a few people that I knew. Now I'm trying to train them and still do calls. I'm trying to, listening to their calls, and I'm like, oh my God, I would have made that sale. You know what I'm saying? Oh my God.
That's a deal. Oh.
Yeah, that was a deal. Yeah. So I find myself like reaching back out to some of those people like, hey, I saw that you spoke to such and such earlier. I want to see if you want to jump on the quick call just so I can make sure you're good to go. So now I call myself like going behind them playing cleanup. So I'm doing two things. So obviously I got no expertise. I can sell, but no expertise in training salespeople. Because I always tell people, just because you can do a thing doesn't necessarily mean you can teach it, right? You can develop into that, but that's a whole skill that's in itself.
Yeah.
So I was doing that. So I went through a few salespeople. It didn't work out. And then I was like, all right, that's when we actually connected. And he was like, dude, I can just take the whole thing, off your plate. And I'm like, perfect. And then once we was able to do that, now I was able to step back from not trying to hire salespeople. Because one time I did something crazy. I brought on like 3 salespeople at one time. All people who I brought on. And like, I'm the type of person, I got I won't say low patience with selling, but I'm the type of person where I'm like high risk averse. So I'm like, all right, if you guys understand the basics of this thing, I'm gonna go ahead and get y'all on the phone so we can start taking some calls and just kind of see what happens. So now I got to ramp up ad spend. I got 2 or 3 guys I need, sales coming from, and obviously that bombed, right? So I would say that was the biggest place. So me trying to figure that stuff out, and I would say that was the biggest place we stayed at too long, because I think if we would have knew what we knew now, we could have easily blew past that, and I could have just stayed focused on what I should be focused on versus trying to hire, versus trying to recruit, versus all this different stuff to make sure the sales side is on point.
I remember when we first started working together, and like, this is a cool note for anyone who is watching this. Marquel is actually one of the first people he is the first person that worked with us after once I kind of really went out on my own. The thing that I'm really honored by is that you're still here and still working with us after all that time. So we got you sales rep, who was actually Moose at the time, and Moose came out and Moose like killed it.
Yep.
But the issue was your payment plans were all jacked up. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that Moose could sell like anything to anyone.
Yep.
And like, he was able to give, like, everybody was applying for credit. Everybody was giving him a credit card. So we knew that we didn't have a sales problem. We knew that there was a problem with the people that we were attracting because their credit apps kept bouncing. And then their credit cards only had like $100 to charge on them.
True.
And it was interesting because like when it was just you at the time, I think the volume was low enough where you could sell enough of the people. And then when you got off the phones, you were able to like max out Moose. It was kind of like, that was when you really noticed that, holy crap, even this messaging path isn't working at the level I want it to. And then you kind of took it and went back to the drawing board and came back with the current form, which is what you're describing now, which is like, hey, you have an expertise, but you want to scale it as opposed to like package your expertise.
Yeah. It's a total game changer. And I would say this, because I don't know if anybody's struggling with this. I know for me, I think the biggest thing for me was, I think I had a mental bottleneck that kept me stuck there for a minute as well. Because I know I was good at what I do. However, I was like, am I ready to serve at a higher level? Like, am I ready to really step in And I think it was mental. So I always use it. The example I use is like, I felt like Jay-Z, right? So Jay-Z, he was like, all right, Jay-Z, do you keep dropping bars at the level that you know you can drop bars? Or do you dumb down the lyrics just to cater to people who feel like you should dumb down the lyrics? And I felt like I was dumbing down my lyrics to work with the masses versus like stepping up and saying, okay, I know I can serve at a high level. Let me step up and step into my greatness and really share what I can share. And then that allowed me to start attracting a different caliber of people because my conversation changed versus like the typical, start a business and blah, blah, blah. It was just a different level of conversation, which of course attract a different type of person.
You said you were at 30 grand a month when you were kind of doing everything yourself, 30, 40 grand a month on a good month. And then post sales rep, what was like the before and after once you brought on sales reps?
So initially I was taking a few calls, then Moose was taking some calls, and then I was slowly able to take less calls, and Moose was able to, take on more calls. So we was able to double essentially and get it to like the 70 to 80 grand a month or so without me doing calls, so I can focus on other areas. And that was pretty quick before things kind of plateaued a little bit.
And then you got stuck for a while at that like 80 grand a month. And I think you were there for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Right. And then, which is a terrible place to be at 80 grand a month, or like, you got sales reps and it just sucks, dude. But so you were there for a while. What was the bottleneck there? And then what was the epiphany that kind of helped you then unlock that bottleneck?
So I think right there at that point, I was the bottleneck. So it was kind of like, I was still like, everything was kind of still directly tied to me. So one of the biggest things that we talked about before is like a lot of stuff in our system, it was more about Marquel. So now I started to pull myself out and made it less about being Marquel. People want to work with Marquel. But now people want the CAU system. You know what I'm saying? What they really want is the system. So now when it comes to fulfillment, it doesn't matter if I'm there to fulfill. It doesn't matter if I'm on the call. People aren't necessarily coming to the call looking to speak to me. They're not necessarily showing up, looking for me to always fulfill. They understand it's the whole team. Because before that, it was all MarquelRussell.com. It was my logo, the branding, and all that. Now we removed all that. Now it's more about the company. Now it's more about the system. And now I'm empowering other people to be in position. So now the business still runs like a machine. Regardless if I'm doing calls, regardless if I'm on the ads, or regardless if I'm on a coaching call in the group or whatever, it still runs. So I think I was the biggest bottleneck because I had a lot of the knowledge locked in my head, but never really took the time to really like unpack it and really start giving it off to other people on the team. So I think that was the biggest piece at that point.
So one thing I'm curious about in your experience of that, like how much of it was just almost like the emotional component of that versus the actual technical, like documenting your knowledge and shifting the stuff? Like how much of it was emotional?
Dude, all of it was emotional. Because in your mind, you're like, all right, dang, are they still gonna, well, like, is it, because first of all, it's like, I think it's a lot of ego, number one, because a lot of times you're thinking nobody can fulfill as good as you will, or nobody can sell as good as you will, or all this different type of stuff. And so it's a lot of ego there, which, leads to the emotion stuff. So it's all of that. So I never really took the time to really unpack it, because if I feel like I'm in control. If I release too much control, now, number one, now what do I do? Number two, can I trust other people to still fulfill? Number three, the clients aren't going to respond, or it's not going to convert as well if I'm not totally hands-on, which was all total BS.
A huge part of your identity gets tied to your business.
Yeah.
And then your identity is all wrapped up in it, like what you're saying with the ego part of it. And then your significance is also like, there's an element of significance of everybody saying how smart you are and how great you are and how you changed their life and how thank God they met you. And like all that ego really it makes you feel significant. And then when you leave that, it's like what can fill that void? Because I think that, for almost anyone I talk to that has this type of business, that like what you're doing and what we're doing, and like anyone scaling these types of businesses with clients, like everyone says like the money is the best thing, only second to the moment when the people get results, right? And like when you see how the actual product is impacting your clients' lives, that is really the best part of it, right? Like that's the sort of stuff that really like gets super addicting.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start to pull out your significance, there's that sense where you get kind of like scared in a way. And then the other thing is that you also have the fears of like, well, what if the person takes my stuff? What if the clients like that person more than they like me? Like these like stupid little ideas, right? Like,
Right.
but what if their loyalty then now is to that person and not to me? And then like, I think all those things get wrapped up in it. But I do think that also, like, to touch on what you're saying, like it's total BS that the results did drop, but I think that they do in most situations we see they temporarily drop, right?
Yep.
And I think that in that gap of when you decide like, okay, I'm going to move all attention to the system as opposed to me as a human, that there is a subtle dip in conversions for a period of time, and it is real. But then at the end of the day, now you're on the other side of it where your business is way more attractive to any buyer if you ever wanted to sell it. Not saying that you did, but like you don't want to have a business that dies with you when you die. You know what I mean? You want to build a business that can sell if you ever wanted to for whatever reason.
Yep.
And so like the business is far more attractive to a buyer. You're going to get a higher multiple if you were to ever offer it to a buyer. And it's easier to operate and more fun to operate now.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Agree, 100%.
How long did it take you to solve that specific bottleneck?
I would say it probably took me after I realized it.
How long did it take you to realize it is the real question then.
Oh my God. Probably took me to, honestly, man, how long it took me to realize it? Probably maybe like 3 or 4 years, man.
That's crazy.
I would say easily, probably about 3 or 4 years, because I just wasn't even conscious of it, right? Yeah, because I was like in this personal brand thing, this personal brand. So I wasn't really even conscious of it until we start growing. And I was like, all right, we're capped at right here. And then especially when you got a team where they're like, want to take stuff off your plate and they want to do things, but I'm kind of like, I'm still holding it closely guarded to me because I won't take the time to like break it out. Even when I brought on my first assistant, because I think we probably got to like 30, 40K or whatever, before I even brought an assistant on. And even then, when I was hiring her and training her, like me unpacking everything that I was doing on a day-to-day basis, I was like, this is crazy. I do a lot of stuff that I don't even really realize that I'm doing. So now we start breaking it all out, putting it in project management software. Now everything is super systemized, but I wasn't even conscious of it before then. It was just like hustle, grind. I'm just getting it done. Yeah, I'm just going to get it all done no matter what. So yeah, that was huge.
Yeah. I remember too. So one of my like favorite moments was when we first started working together, and then you were like, yo, I got this trip to Vegas and the Grand Canyon coming up with the family. And then you went and like you were at the Grand Canyon showing your kids one of the natural wonders of the world. Yep. And then you made like a painful that day. I was like, yep, this is epic. Yeah, that was so cool.
And the cool thing was, it was cooler. So we were in Vegas, and then Moose was actually in Florida on the beach or something like that, closing deal. So it was dope.
So, and then, I mean, I think like what's been cool to see as well is like, even since since like October to now, the growth has been insane. And even like a lot of the work, it had been set up, and then now you're starting to hit where it's like what are you on track to do this month?
So we'll probably do we're projecting like 350 this month.
Dude, that's sick.
Yeah.
That's sick. And that's not like big back end sales or anything like that. That's just core products from your evergreen systems, which is that's no launch. That's no nothing. That's just basically 2 reps. And then how many setters do you have right now?
So we have 2 reps and we have 4 setters now. So we got 3 new ones we're onboarding, but we had 1. We got our 3 we're like getting started taking calls this week. So it'll be 4. We got 2.
So really 2 reps, 1 setter, and then 3 in trial.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Crazy. 2 reps and 1 setter, and then you're on pacing 350, and then you're doing it where you're out at 3 p.m. most days, and like, you know.
And we just work and I just work Monday through Thursday, so it's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't really do anything other than the huddle on Friday, but that's it.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Like, you know, on the outside, and I'm sure even like you at 30 grand a month couldn't imagine this. You know what I mean? Doing like 10 times the production with a fraction of the input is pretty crazy.
Yeah, bro. It's insane.
Yeah, and you're doing the stuff too with the live events and the big back ends, and you tied all that stuff in as well. And like, I'm really excited to see how that hits. And when you do stack this on that, like,
Yeah, it's gonna get crazy.
I believe I'm on the call here with an extra calculator to help you gentlemen count up all that revenue you got going on, right? So you cracked the milli.
We cracked a milli, man. We did a little over, so $1 million and change.
All right.
We projected it though. We said it like early in the year.
Yeah, that's why it was no beef. That's why I figured you guys were so busy with the events and stuff. I was like, all right, no worries, man. No worries. So what's the scoop? How's it been shaking?
So it's been good, man. We're off to another great start of the month. We're about to bring on three new. I think we brought on 3 new salespeople because JJ left last month.
Mm-hmm.
We brought on 3 new. A guy named Joshua Kuhlman from UK. You probably know him.
Yeah.
I hear he's supposed to be decent, but we'll see. Younger guy. We'll see what happens. You never know, man.
Right.
So we just taking this approach because we're very coach. Our culture is like super family.
Yeah.
We just like a little more. Okay, let's just see what happens before we get too attached.
Yeah.
So we got 3 new salespeople. Rochelle is interviewing, I think, 5 fitters today.
Yep.
So we're just restocking so to speak. We got 2 super solid specialists that works with Rochelle. And then we're interviewing. Let all the other ones go that we had. We got 5 more she's interviewing today. So we'll see how that goes. 3 salespeople are on board in this week. I'm not sure if they're ready for calls yet or not. So we're doing that. And yeah, man, we just ready to ramp things up again. And we got our next 3-day is November.
Okay.
And then we're going to test. We got a big event in December. And then we're about to test this challenge model. Like a 5-day challenge going right into our back end. So yeah, we're testing that out. So yeah, man, a lot of cool stuff.
So do you have any final words that you want to leave them with as they're kind of thinking about their journey to scale to 7 figures?
I would say the biggest thing is like simplicity, right? It's really simplifying. So like scaling this thing up to 7 figures and beyond is like, it's like, it seems like this big monster, right? Yeah. But for me, I'm like, all right, how do you like simplify? So obviously you got the marketing side you want to dial in, but that includes the messaging and ads and all that. Then you got the sales side. And then once you sell, you got, the fulfillment and then the operations and things of that nature. But you break it down and you're like, all right, it's not this massive thing. It's like dialing in a few pillars. And you say, okay, for the next 90 days, we're going to focus on dialing this in, for example, the 30 days, 60 days, or whatever. Next 90 days after that, we're going to dial this in. Next 90 days after that, we're going to dial this. We're going to make sure all this is on point. So what I tell my clients, when they start trying to complicate it even more, when they like, well, this and this and this, I'm like, look, now that you got your machine going, the only focus every day is leads, apps, sales, and service. So it's like getting more leads, converting those leads into scheduled calls, enrolling them, and then serving these clients at a really high level. And when you serve them at a really high level, that's going to create more client success stories, not out raving about you, sending you more people, and it just feeds back into those 4 things. And if you just focus on those 4 things every day, it's really that simple, to be honest with you. I know it's like an oversimplification, but those are the 4 things that we focus on. That's pretty much it.